So I'm sitting in a parking lot here. I made this video before, but I deleted it because I feel like I didn't explain it the way I wanted to explain it. But I came up with an analogy that perfectly fits what I'm gonna say. Of that, most people are simpletons, NPCs. Just follow the crowd, basically. If the government literally says that abortion's okay, like, most people just go along with it. If the government says it's okay for children to become transgender, a lot of people in crowds, like sheep, just go along with it. Same with putting kids on amphetamines, Adderall, Ritalin, because they can't concentrate in school because of a nonsense ADHD diagnosis. A lot of people in droves go along with it because most people are sheep, NPCs, simpletons. But the analogy that I finally came up that explains what I'm about to say is that there are different kinds of simpletons. There's a spectrum of them. There's different types of humans. Humanoids, I mean. There's one human species. There's 3 human races. But there's many different type of humanoids inside that spectrum. And I felt like the best way to do this was by using fantasy races as an example. I personally feel like most people can be described as hollows. Basically, they're zombies. They just go along with everything that they're told, whether it's good or bad, like back when everyone had to, get the shot. Most people just went along with it. Same with gay marriage. Most people just went along with it because most people don't think for themselves. They think whatever the government tells them, or whatever people who are higher up tell them, is good. That's not always the case. Second type of humanoid, which is also on the bad side. Second type, the orc. Now, these people are your gang members, people who cause trouble in society. They cause trouble in the workplace because their brain functions in a way where they feel like they have to cause trouble in order, that's just how their brain works, in order to even exist. They have to cause trouble. Wherever they go, they're going to cause trouble. So basically, perfect examples of orcs would be gang members and those people raising a ruckus at restaurants, usually ghetto people, and even rednecks that will call you a Democrat just because you slightly disagreed with them, and not because you're actually a Democrat. Those are the orcs. Another type of human person, comparing them to fantasy races, of course, is the dwarf. Not because they are literally dwarves, like from Lord of the Rings, but because they have that same mentality. You see, these people are usually blue-collar workers. They usually work at warehouses. Unlike the hollows and the orcs, people who are comparable to those fantasy races, these people aren't evil. They are not evil. But they are probably one of the biggest simpletons out of all the type of people you could run into. They vote without questioning. They are loyal to a party, a political party, simply because their family has been voting in it for generations. A good example would be an old man who isn't liberal. He is not liberal. He spent his whole life working blue-collar jobs in the 60s and 70s. And I will mention again, this man, for example, is not a liberal. But he still votes Democrat simply because he's been voting Democrat since the 60s. That is a perfect example. So the thing about dwarves also is that they can be found in a lot of the same environments that orcs could also be found in. Some orcs, gang members, also work at warehouses. The difference between working with a dwarf and working with an orc a lot of times is that if you start talking about philosophy, which I no longer really do at work that much, unless I know that someone's also really into philosophy and a better outlook on the world, I don't really talk about it at work that much anymore. But if you do start talking about those things, the big difference is, unlike the orc, the dwarf isn't really going to try and bully you for it. But because dwarves are such a simple people, because people who are comparable to dwarves are so simple in their lifestyle, if you tell them about philosophy, they will really just scratch their heads and not give it much thought. Another type of human are also vampires, which are on the bad side. These are your psychopaths, your Ted Bundys, your Albert Fishes, your Jeffrey Dahmers. They're basically psychopaths. Their brains operate in a way where they have no empathy, and they also have a big desire to victimize others. One thing I noticed is that the first type of humanoid that I mentioned, the hollow or the zombie, gets swayed really easily by the vampire. If you look at a lot of celebrities are psychopaths, a lot of politicians are psychopaths, and they have droves of hollows, of zombies that are supporting them. Because this type of human also has a big sway over the hollows. Another type of human, I guess, an example of would be people who are like hobbits. I remember meeting one guy, and the amazing thing about him is that we could actually discuss philosophy with each other and religion. We hung out a few times just to talk about religion, theology, philosophy, all that. He was actually kind of short, and he enjoyed just basically, he just chilled out, drank a little, but in moderation, enjoyed the little things in life, like good food once in a while, after a hard day's work, didn't stress much, and the thing about him is, he was a type of human that was basically like a hobbit in his lifestyle. And this is the first type of human that I'm mentioning, which might actually be considered on the good side. The one negative of hobbits is they usually don't push for change. They enjoy things staying the same. So even though they have a perspective of a better philosophical outlook on the world that is not idealistic, like a lot of hollows have, they enjoy things staying the same and a lot of times won't push for a positive change, but they will fight for a positive change if they absolutely have to. And that is another type of human, the hobbit, or people who are like hobbits. And I guess last but not least are people who are like elves. This is the type of humanoid I guess I would compare myself to the most. But in general, people who are like elves are very into philosophy. They actually read about the best approaches to approaching life and living life carefully, safely, and the most effectively. The thing is, when an elf tries to tell an orc about philosophy, they'll try and bully him for it. When an elf tries to tell a dwarf about philosophy, the dwarf will just scratch his head and not give it much thought.